We're back again. This is Waldorf.
I'm Statler.
And this time we're doing section 15, Mundane Equipment on the 9th age.
Mundane.
Mundane. Mundane means normal, just in case you weren't aware of that.
Oh, I thought it meant boring.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
The boring equipment.
Yeah.
Close combat weapons. We'll start with that, because that's what they started with. We'll go with hand weapons. Hand weapons, this is the very significant change in the rules from 8th edition. If you have a hand weapon and a shield, you get the parry special rule, which close combat from opponent. Sorry, let me try that again. Close combat attacks from opponents in the front can never score successful hits on to hit rolls of better than 4+.
And this is applied before any modifiers.
Before modifiers.
So if you have like lightning reflexes, you still get a +1.
Right.
I hate this rule.
Yeah, I know. You've been fairly vocal about that one.
Yeah, I mean,
I
love most everything they did. I know they've been struggling. I remember the 8th edition, okay, it was that 6 ward save. Before that, it was a +1 armor save.
I actually like the +1 armor save as well.
I liked any of those better than this.
Than this one?
You know, or even if it was just +1 versus missile fire or +1 versus, close combat, that'd have been okay. But this just rewards, crappy troops, which is like, okay, they need it, but are they really paying?
Right.
The cost points, balancing that point-wise makes, because all of a sudden now they're the same weapon skill and defense as their opponent.
Correct. Which is odd. I mean, again, the big thing, when this first came out, they did not have that limitation of the 4+.
Correct, and it was broken.
And it was broken because the
elite guys,
the elite troops became really tough to deal with.
Right.
So, I mean, then they brought it down to the 4+, which kind of made the rule a little cumbersome now.
Yeah. And I think it's the best way to call it. I just think it's cumbersome, and I just wish they'd have done this different ways.
Yeah. Either of the first ways, like we said, the +1 armor save, which I kind of liked. Although that never gave you it never gave you what the 6-up ward save, where it was just a luck save, basically. But at least the ones where it ignored, was going to chop through your armor anyway, it gave you some type of save.
Well, it was nice too, because it wasn't an extra die roll, which this isn't either. The parry save was an extra die roll, so I can see that, and it was another type of ward save that you had in the game, but I just don't like this particular solution.
But I'm okay with what they were looking for. I mean, they were looking for a way to give just the hand weapon shield line troops a bonus.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good bonus if you got crappy guys.
Right. I mean, yes. And that's what it comes down to.
Right.
Which, to me, is kind of counterintuitive, because the better troops get nothing from this.
Right.
And the better.
They'd be able to use a shield a little bit better.
The less skilled troops get the bigger bonus.
And I don't know how you point it, because if you give it to a weapon skill 2 guy, well, he's almost always going to use it, right? Because almost everyone's, you give it to a weapon skill 3, now you got maybe 70% of guys that you're going to be okay. Weapon skill 4, so as you, because it's not straight across, you still can use it unless you're like weapon skill 6,
Yes.
against something. And so, it's a complication that I'm just not a fan of.
What's the next one? The flail?
I think this is one of the pile-on anti-cavalry moves also.
The hand weapon and shield?
Yeah, just to reinforce his rubber lances.
It does, because now, the Kingdom of Aquitaine guys are only hitting on 4s.
On 4s against goblins.
And even guys here less weapon skill. Yeah, anyway, if it's a hand weapon shield unit.
Yep.
Again, the flail's the next one. You get +2 strength all the time, not in the first round of combat, which is the old rule. Mm-hmm. But you get the +1 to be hit.
Right.
Again, this is another one of those, I'm going to call it a little bit of a cumbersome rule, because you have to remember you're getting +1 to hit. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Well, it's kind of the opposite of the parry rule, if you think about it. The old parry rule.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's when it came out, was at the beginning of the
Correct.
9th age update. So, yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, it depends what kind of models you have. If you've got little cheap little guys, then you don't care. Or really high weapon skill, you might give up with it. You got expensive guys, on mounts, then you're thinking about it, what kind of armor save you have.
Right, what you're facing.
Yeah, +1 can be a big deal on a small count elite unit.
Correct.
Yeah. But it's okay, Yeah.
It is. I mean, it makes a difference in the weapon.
Right.
The +2 strength all the time makes
That
us
makes it a nice option.
still fighting in initiative order.
And that's the thing. If you got good initiative, so you don't have the always strikes at initiative 0, which brings the great weapon. So this is a slight change because before it was always strikes last, which no longer exists.
The great weapon? Yeah.
In general, I mean,
Correct.
because everything is initiative order. You're either initiative 1 or you're initiative 0 or 3 or whatever you are.
Correct.
You know,
You
10.
have an initiative
You have
value no matter
initiative.
what now.
So, great weapons now strike at the end, same time as special attacks. So,
Correct. That was actually a change. It looked odd at first to me. It took me a while to get used to that. Always strike last is gone.
Right.
But now you just get bumped down to initiative 0.
Yeah, I was okay with it. I follow it in the line of streamlining.
Correct.
And this has taken away the, first versus last and all this other stuff that you used to have. That's all gone now.
Yes. Yeah. The interaction between always strike last and...
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Halberd. The halberd, same as it always was, requires 2 hands, +1 strength.
Yep, same old, same old.
Get your initiative on that.
Paired weapons. Formerly known as additional hand weapons.
Yes.
This is very interesting. On one hand, it's basically the same. It requires 2 hands. You get a +1 attack for the extra weapon. But the big boost that it's got is the +1 initiative.
Correct.
And, this can make a big deal if you've got pretty strong guys, or you've got relatively, you got armor piercing or whatever, and you can do a lot of damage because you've got better initiative than your opponents. Or you have guys that maybe had bad initiative and now all of a sudden they're average.
Correct.
So
Yeah, believe me, I'm aware of that one because
the ogres it's quite scary.
the ogres and also the savage orcs now.
Yeah.
If you give them the extra hand weapon, now they're up to initiative
There's
3.
Yep.
So at least they're not dying before they attack.
Yeah. Well,
Simultaneous.
the beast herds, I guess they go to 4 because I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
So
Okay. Yeah, beastmen. Why not? Anyway.
So I think it's a nice thing that they gave it. It's just initiative's so important, but I'm okay with it. Clearly they're trying to make all the weapons, worth taking.
Worth taking and different from another
And
weapon.
different from one another.
Right. The lance, +2 strength, same as it's always been. It was texture. They did clarify this. The bonus can only be used for attacks directed against the charged enemies.
Correct.
Because there's always that weird case where you overran, hit somebody in the overrun. That combat didn't take place till next turn. Somebody else hits you. Now,
Right.
it was never clear before that you
Right,
did
right,
not get
right.
the strength bonus against the opposite unit. And then only mounted models get this bonus. War Beast, Monstrous Beast War Beast and Monstrous Beasts can use a
Right.
lance. Correct.
And that's just clarifying. And they've really segregated the difference between troops on foot and troops mounted and what they can use, which takes us to the next one, which is the light lance, which on the surface looks like a whole new weapon, but it's not. I'll take before you had a spear, and if the spear was mounted, it had this set of rules, and if it was on foot, it had this set of rules.
Correct.
So they've cleaned that all up. So
Right.
basically, if you're mounted, you've got a light lance. If you have a light lance option, if you're on foot, you got a spear option. Also impacts magic weapons. You have some magic spears, so they can only be taken by foot guys. So
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
so I think it clarifies a lot, and it does cause a bit of a change to some of the builds, of course, for magic. The light lance rules basically the same. It's a +1 strength. A lot of light cavalry tend to have this in the game. There's some units that have it, and you have the option of getting a lance. I think you'd probably always take the lance if you have the choice, but
Sometimes
unless
the
the
cost
points are
prohibitive.
just so bad, they are like 15 points for a hero. But
Yeah.
the,
even I've seen them up to 4 points a model on
Yeah.
even just troops.
yeah, and
But-
the thing is, it is only the first round of combat.
Correct.
Unlike the halberd or the great weapon or the flail, or every round,
Which
and
stick
it gets no bonus. The spears, on the other hand, they've really boosted these.
Yes.
There was something you didn't see too often in 8th.
A spear unit was almost
You had a choice between a
worthless.
halberd and a spear. You'd almost always take a halberd.
Or go down to hand weapon
or
because
go
you
to-
at least got
You
whatever
get the
that
ward
current
save,
parry
exactly,
roll
and the
was.
+1 armor save.
Right.
But the spear now is fantastic. You get fight an extra rank, which you got before. All the attacks.
But also, fight an extra rank is not limited to being charged. Whereas
Correct.
before, if you charged, you lost that.
Exactly. And you get armor piercing against all targets.
Yep.
Against mounted targets, you get lethal strike, which basically means if you roll a 6-2 and they don't get their armor saves. So they've really made spears much better against cavalry,
Yes.
which I think, hear them talk about this as the natural counter to cavalry, but they're frankly better against everything, substantially better.
They're better against everything, and they're much better against cav and chariots, of course.
Yeah,
But
just the armor piercing and the fighting in extra ranks. I think it makes them frankly better than halberds on most troop choice options.
you don't
Unless you're
get
being charged in the flank.
you're not getting the plus to wound, but you're getting the same armor piercing
You're getting the same
value
armor piercing,
as a halberd.
and that extra whole rank of troops should make up the difference in most cases.
You would hope. Yeah, you would
Yeah.
think so.
And then you get the bonus of cavalry. So it's kind of weird. You'll see in some of the books that halberds cost more. Doesn't really make sense to me. And that's what kind of makes it odd that, there's, because of these rules, cavalry has really changed in the Ninth Age.
Yes.
Infantry is much more powerful in general than cavalry is.
Cav has definitely taken a hit
Yeah,
in Ninth Age,
definitely
from
taken
what
a
I've
hit.
seen.
And it'd been nice if they decided to make all things equal, if they would have done something with the lance and the light lance to either give it a plus initiative or do something, especially since it's only hitting on one round of combat.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big initiative bonus for the lance would have been nice.
Yeah.
On the turn it charges.
On the turn of charge, at least that would help us let it do something. If you go back to third edition, it
Well-
had that, but but I think generally I like that they've tried to make all the weapons worth taking. It's no longer, you got Empire, you have halberds,
Right.
you don't care about the other stuff, or 6th edition you have the hand weapon
hand
shield
weapon
option
shield
to be
guys.
better initiative. So this makes that much cleaner, and it gives you some interesting build decisions in a lot of armies. But it does really screw cavalry.
Yes, unfortunately, that was a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
We move on to shooting weapons. Here, they just list them all. You can see they're very clear who has volley fire. The new rule here is unwieldy, which crossbows and handguns have, which I think is a fantastic addition. Basically, you can move and shoot with these two units now, crossbows and handguns, but you take them, instead of a -1 penalty for moving and shooting, you have a -2.
Right.
This lets you take a unit of because units of crossbows and handguns almost disappeared because if something
Right.
got to their flank, they were useless.
You couldn't do anything.
Now you can at least pivot and shoot and take the
Maybe
-2
have some kind of chance.
and cause a wound
It's
or
only
two.
an additional -1, so it's not
Yeah.
awful. But yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, the only thing here is the throwing weapons. Range 12, strength of user, quick to fire, multiple shots 2. Not a big difference. The big difference is the multi-shot 2, I think,
Right.
is what they did not have before, right?
Yeah, I believe that was because they had different weapons. They had like javelins, they had axes,
And each one of those had their own rules
throwing
before.
stars. Yeah, so now it's just one type of throwing weapons,
Right.
and with one range. And the 6 and 8 and 12 and everything else.
And I think even the sling's at an 18 or something, right?
Right.
All right. That's throwing weapons and artillery weapons. Start with the catapult, I guess.
Yeah.
This is the catapult, the rock lobber, or whatever you want to call it. It's pretty much what it used to be. Nothing really changed here.
The scatter's a little different.
Well,
You don't have the 10 scatter die anymore.
yeah, but it's the same effect,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
because of the misfire.
they're just saying you
It
use
is basically, yes.
It's the same thing. It just you're using a D6 now instead of the scatter die. I mean,
Right.
the old artillery die. If you have the old artillery die, you're still going to use it because
Right. It's easier.
it's easier.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so nothing really different there. The only other difference is the hole now is the exact center point. It's not
Right.
that hole that used to be in the 3-inch, 5-inch template,
Correct.
which was, I think, like a 1/4-inch hole or maybe a little bit
A
smaller.
little smaller, but it could hit multiple guys.
Right.
Quite often would hit multiple guys.
Now they make
Now-
it very clear that it's
Nope.
the exact point in the center.
Exactly.
So next one.
The flamethrowers. I mean, the big thing here is it no longer uses the flame template.
Flame template's gone.
The flame template's gone. I think we mentioned it earlier when there's no breath weapons, nothing added. It just uses the standard template. And then, to be honest, I have to remember what was different on this. You get the minus on the misfire table, so it's worse when it misfires.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move it, rolling the d6, the 6 misfires is everything else, and everything that goes along there gets attacked.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have special rules that go with them.
I think they just rewrote the whole thing
Right.
since the template's gone.
Right.
Right? Other than that, it's... Yeah.
Generally speaking, yes.
The only thing they did take away is the automatic panic check that used to be there on the flame weapons.
Yeah.
Because that used to be an immediate panic check from getting hit by a flame weapon. Or at least that was built into most of the rules for the individual weapons, maybe.
Right, and then they're clear about you can't go over friendly units,
Yeah.
which kind of was like how it was with cannons, because you could play games with that before, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Bolt throwers. This, again, there's a lot of blue here, but I think it's just, I don't know why they're considering a significant change. I think it's just a clearing up of the rules.
Yeah.
Reading through it, I didn't see anything different in there.
No, it's basically the same. I mean, unlike the cannon, which actually has a direct line, this thing actually does the flank and rear and front.
Yeah, it's still the weird situation where you hit
Right.
something
You
and then it just
hit it at a 30
penetrates
degree,
ranks.
but you still go straight over.
Right.
I suppose they could have made it more like a cannon in that regard.
You go straight through.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the cannon.
Yes, the cannons are very different. First, and this has gone through a number of iterations through this, and this is, to me, these are the best cannons that I've seen in Warhammer.
Correct, I agree.
I love ballistic skill to hit. There's no more guessing like you had in earlier editions. There's no more laser guided like you had in 8th.
Yes.
Bring out the particle accelerator boys. We're going to take down that monster.
Exactly.
You
And even the early 9th was kind of a laser guided cannon as well.
Yes. And then now it's same mechanic as standard shooting is you pick your target, you roll the hit. If you hit, you hit, and then you actually have a bounce through from there. If you don't hit, you miss.
Correct.
Then there's bonuses for a lot of armies to help with their ballistic skill or modifiers through magic or other things to increase their chances of hit. I just really like the rule. And then the other thing is basically whatever their strength is for the first hit is one thing. Then they take half that strength for all the models that hit. So
For
if
the
you're
bounce through.
so you're still right. So you're still good against rank and file. You're still going to have a good strength, but it's not going to just take out 4 chariots that
Correct.
happen to be in a unit that would happen to be lined up.
Right.
So
And
unless you roll really well.
unless you roll really well,
Yeah.
of course. And it says if any model survives, the cannonball stops.
Right.
So even a rank and file 20 millimeter base guy
Right. It's no longer
stops
you
a
don't roll
cannonball.
every guy and just see who lived.
Correct. Now, one thing that's a bit confusing, or has been that I've seen, is this line here, this last blue line in this one. Sorry, that's the last blue line in the first paragraph. This line immediately stops if it touches an impassable terrain or walls.
Right.
To me, it's fairly clear. But a lot of people were what I've seen this mistaken as you basically couldn't shoot a cannon over a wall. But the line they're talking about in this...
No, this is about the bounce.
Yeah, the line here is talking about the bounce.
Correct.
I can't tell you the last tournament I went to, the last large tournament I went to, this was argued by 6 or 7 different people that I was talking to the guy that was running the tournament and kind of pointing this out to him. And
Yeah.
this came up many times because it just wasn't read.
I think it's actually one of the
correctly.
clear errors. If a successful hit is scored,
Right.
draw a line template from the chosen point in the direction directly away.
Correct.
Yeah, but I can see why people
Anyway,
don't want to be shot by cannons.
they were trying to use
Well,
this
I think
as being canon.
I think they're using the 8th edition where it could fall short, and then you could use a wall to protect you.
Yes.
There's a lot of that. I think you're probably gonna you run into tournaments. I mean, even
It's just a holdover, I think.
you're just holdover things. You
Correct.
just remember things wrong.
Yep. Volley gun. The volley gun rules, again, they're completely rewritten here. Got the multi-shot rule. The new volley gun is it's however many dice, however many d6s you're rolling, right?
Yep.
If you roll a natural 6, you count as a misfire. The interesting thing with this, if you roll a natural 6, it still counts as a 6.
Right.
For a number of shots.
Right.
You're going to get a -1, but it's like I said, it still counts as a 6, especially those that multiply into 2. So now you've got 12 out of it.
Right.
You know, anyway. It goes both ways. I just don't. I like the old one where the misfire counted as 0. Believe me, because I don't use volley guns. I just I'm on the receiving end.
Vaporized. No, I like what they've done with it. I mean, you've got the multiple d6 and different volley guns. We'll see when we get the army book. Some are 2d6, some are 3d6.
Right.
You roll 1, and all it is a -1 to hit for the attack. You still get your full attacks. It's all ballistic skill as it was before. It's only if you roll 2 or 3 6s that you get a full misfire.
Correct. And then you go to the misfire table. Misfire table is, again, it's for every weapon now.
Right.
There's no more gunpowder misfire versus the other. It's a little bit harsher. Now that cannons are toned down, I'm okay with this. I didn't like it at first because when cannons were still the laser guided in early 9th.
Right.
I didn't like that they had the same misfire chart as the rock lobbers, which were nowhere near as accurate.
Right.
But now that cannons are a direct fire weapon, I think the chart is fine being the same, and it's easier to remember.
Well, I like that it's a consolidated chart of all the different machines, and just some machines have, as we saw with the flame
template, where you have the minus.
You have a -1, so they've added the 0 column, which they didn't have before, which is like the catastrophic bad thing happening.
Right.
But when we get to the army books, you'll see some weapons have that additional minuses, or some have additional pluses. Like the dwarves can get a rune that gives them a plus on the chart.
Correct.
But it's a clean chart. It's instead of having a black powder misfire and a non-black powder and or a flame, it's all one.
Yeah, everything had its own misfire chart.
Yeah, so this is very good. Something you can remember. It doesn't require special rules in somebody's army book.
Well, the other thing here that's a big difference from 8th, and it's not in blue because it's a new misfire, because I guess the misfire effects up here is listed in blue, so I guess they consider that everything. The big one is when you roll a misfire and then you roll a 1 or 2, your weapon's damage, no longer shooting, stays on the board.
Right.
This is a significant change because
it's not instant points.
It used to be you rolled a misfire, I just gave the guy 120 points.
Exactly.
That's gone.
So now
still got to come get
it. He misfires, and you get that 130-point war machine. You got to decide if you want to go send some guys after it or not to get some victory points for you.
It's not going to be shooting at you, but it's not giving up the 130 points to the other opponent or however many it was. Yeah. Again, I like this significant change.
Yeah, I think generally, pretty much everything they've done with the war machines is just fantastic.
Okay.
Brings us to armor types. They tried to to simplify the different types of armor and how they go together. So they still have the old armor types: light armor, heavy armor, plate armor. You still have shields with the +1 modifiers it did before. And then the innate defense, which was scaly skin before, basically, which is the same thing. Innate defense 6, 5, 4, and the pluses that you get for that. So you still combine those. And then you have the mounts. Now they brought in this concept of mounts protection. Instead of you get a +1 if you're mounted, or you like a boar, you had the special rule. You get a +2 because of its hard hide. Now they have this concept of mounts protection. So mounts protection 6, mounts protection 5.
Right. And the barding on top of that.
And barding is separate again, with the difference being barding slows you down, as it did in 8th, except for armies that had special rules. So they've Kingdom of Aquitaine. So they made it more concise. It's still a lot of different abilities that you have to kind of keep track of. It can be a little confusing for people when you start getting combined profile models.
Yeah, that's true. And then they give examples. If you have light armor, shield, helm, and mounted, mounts protection 6, +1, and barring, so you have a total of +5. Anyway, it means the same thing, it's just different. Just try to differentiate the way you get there.
Right, and then below they talk about, other things, special equipment, which is usually magic items, such as helms. It's
Right.
very funny that there's a number of magic helms, but there is no mundane helm.
No one has a mundane
I would have
helm.
loved to send that for the Bretonnians. The
A mundane helm to give you
Bretonnian
+1 armor.
Yeah, Bretonnian Great Helm.
That's true.
We'll get to that.
Um,
And then spells and such that can get your armor bonus up,
right. But again, no one can get better than a 1-up.
basically, yes. Or as they say here, a +6 total.
Correct. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yes,
The +6 rather than the 1. Yeah.
right. And then they just give you kind of an example of how they stack up.
Yeah.
And then ones always fail, which is the same as before. So it's basically the same thing, just pulling it off from the different parts of the rules and from some of the rule books,
Right.
and trying to put it together in one concise way. It's just, that they have these multiple types. It's kind of, I don't know, it seems to me it's a complexity that I don't know if it was necessarily required.
Right. And then, like you said, you can see here, mounts protection is a 5-up, and then they have to kind of give you the thing that converts to a +2 to your armor.
Right.
It's just that weird little things they have to do for
Yeah.
mounts and innate defense.
And the innate defense is to me is the odder one, and you'll see it when we get to some of the army books. It's the way to get around other rules, but they could have just come up